Where was the weirdest place you slept and why? Me and my underage friends went for a camping trip in the woods one night to avoid our parents and get smashed. Walking through we found a nice big open clearing. Ideal, right? Morning came and then we realized we'd slept on a public grave. Holy crap. While I was passed out of a friend's house due to excessive drinking at his party, my friends carried me out to the backyard and floated me down the creek in an inflatable donut raft. They had to chase me and jump in the water to get me because I didn't wake up. Joke's on them. I stayed relatively dry and didn't wake up until I was back on land. All I could think of was the Raider story in Fallout where they sent a fellow raider who was scared of fire down the river on a mattress. They set the mattress on fire to prank him. He woke up, saw the fire, and then the rest of them learned that he couldn't swim. I fell asleep in the middle of the woods once when I ran off after getting way too high. When I woke up, I had pine needles stuck into my face and had 3 or 4 ticks burrowed into my skin. 0/10 would not recommend. Ticks, oh no. On the back of a mountain guide. I was 8. My mom had been overly optimistic on my ability to hike over 20 kms in a day. In the Alps in the middle of July, I lasted 15 kms. Then the guy carried me on his back. And well, he was comfy and I was tired. When I was about 9 years old, I still wanted to sleep in mom and dad's room them every once in a while. But they wouldn't let me, especially since we now had a dog who slept them. During the day one day I saw my dog sleep under mom and dad's bed though. I did just that. Grabbed my smallest pillow and a little throw blanket and snuck under their bed at night and slept there. LOL. That could have gotten awkward if mom and dad were feeling frisky. It was around 3 AM and was baked. Slept outside the fish and chip store waiting for it to open. In a nest of dinosaur eggs. I was excavating a partial velociraptor skeleton in northern China in the full sun. It was the last day of the dig, so a bit of a panic to get everything done. With several colleagues. It was so hot we were taking turns to sit in the limited shade and take 15 minutes break. On my turn I climbed up the hill a short way and found a nice depression that had rather more shade than the other spots and soon dozed off. When I woke up, I realized what I was sat in was the remnants of a nest and there were bits of eggshell in a ring around me. That meant we now had more stuff to dig out, so it wasn't that great a discovery. My sister's closet. We were around 7 years old. We had just moved into a new house. Went from a trailer to a 2-story, with a basement house. My parents instead of down the hall were in the basement while me and my sis had our own rooms on 2nd floor. The closest in the rooms were pretty, the whole side of the room just walled off. My sis slept in her closet for a couple of nights together because as much as we wanted our own rooms, we were scared to sleep alone. Back of a pickup truck without the canopy. It was weird because I live near Seattle and woke up in Portland with a tarp thrown on me. Presumably so he didn't have to wake me. Boozing it up at a party out in the woods can lead to waking up in another state. I can relate. Back in high school I had an uncanny ability to fall asleep wherever I wanted and in any position. I ended up falling asleep on a field with a snare on during marching band rehearsals. I got really drunk back in my stupid years. I passed out underneath a communal hallway stairwell and covered myself in papers to keep me warm. Next morning woke up and thought what the heck. Didn't know where I was and bolted out the door. As I got outside I looked up and down the street to find it was my place. I just never made it as far as my front door. Don't drink too much. This post got really exciting at about the halfway point. The Greyhound bus depot in Miami, FL. In case you're not aware, it's in an exceptionally bad part of town. Our car broke down and we lived 5 hours away. By the time we diagnosed the issue it was too late to go get parts, so we ended up sleeping with the car. There are some interesting people in Miami after midnight. Several of them knocked on the window to introduce themselves. Mostly to ask for money. As soon as the parts store opened we got the car fixed and got the heck out of Miami. When I went to work the next day my Cuban co-worker accosts me. "Sir, I'm Cuban and you were broken down in Miami. Why didn't you call me, you dumbass? My Cubanness would have had you out of there in 10 minutes. On reflection, I probably should have called him. All too common mistake nowadays. Underestimating the power of hardworking Hispanic Caribbean folk. My bedroom is a walk-in closet. It's small and dark and I freaking like it that way. I don't have a lot of stuff, so I don't need or want a lot of space. It's okay. I'm sure your owl will arrive soon. Not strange by military standards, but my family thought it was weird that I would sleep propped up by a log at the rifle range while in the Marine Corps. Why? Because it was 4:30 in the dang morning. Hurry up and wait is a real thing. And I was tired. Just about everyone I've ever known who served has stories of places they've slept while in the military, some of them pretty crazy. I had a sleepwalking episode where I forced one of my roommates out of his bed and slept briefly in it while he tried to pull me out. I then proceeded to pee on the wall by the sink and went to sleep in my actual bed. In the fetal position, under a nightstand, surrounded by 14 other people in a single bed hotel room. My friends and I went to a convention every year. Since we were teens, and hotel prices jack up during the con week, we all would split on one room, basically arguing we wouldn't be there much anyway. I chose to sleep under the nightstand because there was an outlet where I could charge my phone, DS and my MP3 player. I am old. We always agreed to take turns, but the girls always got the bed anyway. I thought the natural darkness of the table made it feel somewhat nice in comparison to just sleeping in the floor, though I wish hotels dusted more often. I went to a dancing event with a bunch of girls from my college. There were 16 of us in one room. I was the only guy. I got to sleep under the desk. I slept in a skip once. Been out for a few drinks. Turned into several. Apparently as we were walking back, I was staying at a friend's house. I said I'll sleep here, it's okay, and then jumped into a mostly full skip. Pulled a tarpaulin over myself like a blanket and pretty much passed out. Woke up several hours later and somehow made it to work. They were not impressed with me. To all my friends, skip means dumpster. When I was a kid I had gotten something, I forget what, that came in a tall, skinny box. As a kid, it reminded me of a coffin. I kept it and slept in it for months. Best sleep of my life. I have no idea why my parents let me do it for so long though. My guess is that your parents let you because you didn't resist bedtime. Source: am a parent and have let my oldest sleep under the bed because she was really keen and it made bedtime more peaceful. She slept very well. In a quarry after a party. That was in the quarry, in a turbine hall of an abandoned gas testing facility. Not necessarily the weirdest but best was underground in the Paris catacombs. When I was homeless and addicted to H, I waited in the bathroom of a church until everyone was gone and slept on a couch in the church. I have 36 days clean now and I'm never going back to that life. Not sure whether to apply the username to the whole story or to being 36 days clean. My nephew's crib when I was 14 years old. My sister's husband was an awful human who came from money and didn't do anything. She worked 12 hours night shifts and then would come home in the morning and he'd leave. Like, oh good, you're here. Bye. And because I lived nearby I ended up being over there to help with this new baby a lot. So I'm sure there's a lot of people here who know what it takes to raise a baby, but 14-year-old me was dead. One day I was seriously fighting the lack of sleep. He had been sick the night before, so I was up the day and night before and he was still sick. And my sister is an amazing human who always said to wake her up at absolutely any point, so I did, and I handed her my nephew, and in my head I told myself to go to sleep in my bed. But I went and climbed in my nephew's crib instead. My sister died when she saw me and won't let me live it down. But it was still the best nap I had ever taken. RIP your sister. I was moving back to Missouri after living in Oregon for about a year. My car was packed with all my stuff, with just enough room for me to slide into the backseat and lie down. The first night, I pulled off at a remote exit in northern Idaho, just east of Kellogg. At the end of the ramp, 2 dirt roads trailed up the mountains to the right. To the left was a single frontage road, about 1/4 mile long, with a walking trail running parallel to it and a small stream. The only things on the road were a historical marker for some old barn, and a small building that looked like an abandoned lumber mill office. So I slept there, buried under my desk chair and bags of clothes in the backseat of my car, next to a mountain stream in the middle of nowhere, Idaho. In college I slept in a fallow field outside of my town, under the stars, without any kind of shelter. I think I had sleeping bag at least. No pillow. It was extremely uncomfortable since the big dried clods of dirt were rock hard and pointy. I had broken up with a girl and it hit me hard. I decided to leave all my distractions and work through things by going for a long hike across country. I packed my crappy hiking pack and walked out my front door. I only went one night, but roughly 40 miles round trip. I honestly think it helped. My girlfriend broke up with me on Valentine's Day, so I got in my car and drive 1,000 miles to Miami, Florida. Having a haircut. Last thing I remembered was that I kept nodding off, so my dad had to hold up my chin so that the hairdresser could still cut my hair. In my defense, we were on holiday and I was very jet lagged. I see your hairdresser and raise you fell asleep in the dentist chair during a teeth cleaning. I used to sleepwalk a lot when I was a kid, which resulted in me ending up in some weird places. The most frequent one was my parents waking up to find me snuggled up against the Labrador in his dog bed in the kitchen. Spent 2 weeks on a meandering slow 350-mile bicycle trip through unknown areas, toting just some clothes and survival gear. Hung my hammock in so really neat places, but also had to spend a few nights in some slightly more questionable areas. Weirdest would have been on a picnic table behind a volunteer fire department. Did the same thing in Eastern Europe this year, no schedule. My top 2 were in a cozy little nook between 2 kayak rental kiosks and a seawall, and a corner between a vending machine and a train station wall. Got lost in the woods while hiking without any equipment. Was supposed to be a 3-hour hike. I was gone for 2 full days. Spent the night shivering in the snow under a tree. That must have sucked. I take it you weren't a Boy Scout. You definitely weren't prepared. Oh god, totally forgot about this. I was going through a very rough patch a few years ago and started drinking a lot. Like I would say alcoholic for a good year straight. I'm much better now. My body is actually extremely sensitive to alcohol, so I can't even enjoy it anymore. Probably some muscle memory effect. Came home from a bar pretty wasted, house was pitch black inside and didn't want to wake everybody up. I walked up the stairs and opened my bedroom door and tried to feel around for my bed. I felt something soft like linens and laid down. At first I thought it was weird how low my bed was, but whatever. Woke up early the next morning realizing I fell asleep in my mother's hallway closet. Good thing no one found me, they would have freaked out. On top of a bus shelter was the place. The reason was being drunk. I used to like climbing things when drunk, and it turns out tops of bus shelters are quite comfortable. Well, for an hour or so anyway. In college, some friends and I took a road trip to a rival school to watch a football game. We were going to stay with some friends down there, but they only had room for a few of us. Not all of us. So we decided we would all sleep in the car in the parking garage of the stadium. As you can imagine, 5 full-grown men trying to sleep in a small sedan can be a little uncomfortable, so we ended up with this sleeping situation. The 2 of us slept in the front seats reclined. 1 slept lying down across the back seats. 1 slept in an open trunk. And I slept on a longboard outside of the car. It actually wasn't too bad, except shortly after I fell asleep I heard some people laughing nearby, and when I looked over to see what they were laughing at, I realized I was rolling down the ramp in the garage at a very high rate of speed. We decided after that to head to the nearest Denny's as it was warm and open 24/7. We ordered some food and took turns sleeping in the booth. The wait staff were pretty cool about it and said that kind of thing happens pretty regularly. Young 20s. My friend brought me to a New Year's Eve event. His sister invited him to W, mid 30s to 40 plus. Found another 20-year-old female and I ended up in the hot tub naked W her while everyone else watched. Ended up back at her parents' house in her bedroom, where she brought one of the 40-plus-year-old attendees. Upon my drunken recognition of this fact, I removed myself from the bedroom and slept on a wooden bench in the foyer downstairs. The next day, waking up, her parents didn't say a thing. In one of the jump seats on a Hercules J model, strapped into a parachute, waiting to do my first, and second, and third jumps a couple of years ago. As for why, I think it has to do with white noise. I have the ability to fall asleep pretty much anywhere. I also wasn't nervous about jumping out of the plane, as most of the other guys were. That's not to make me sound brave or hardcore. I don't think I'm either. I think there's just something wrong with my natural survival instinct. My girlfriend hates it. In my late teens I read this book about how to visit Japan on a shoestring budget. It suggested you shouldn't waste money on hotels. Since Japan is safe and warm you can just sleep anywhere, even in a phone booth. I took that literally and booked my ticket to Japan via Aeroflot Russian Airlines. Only years later I realized that the book must have been exaggerating, joking, and that I may be the only person to actually attempt sleeping in a phone booth. I still remember the look of surprise on a guy's face as he entered the booth to try and place a call. Things turned out well though. I'm closing in on 10 years living in Japan and haven't needed to sleep in phone booths since. Any recommendations for sleeping in a budget in Japan which is realistically achievable? Tokyo is bloody expensive. I ended up sneaking into my buddy's house once after getting kicked out of an underground parking garage. Ended up sleeping in his basement bathroom curled up around a toilet with an incense trail leading to me so he knew I was there. I woke up to my buddy's foot kicking me in the butt. Weirdest part is I met this guy through a friend and knew him for like a week before this happened. Was a sophomore and some of my friends were graduating at uni. We went out the last night before the campus bar closed for the summer. I remember very little except waking up on a couch in our biology building. Years ago while my IT career was on hold I worked on various production sets. One of my first jobs was making sure our production and equipment trucks were safely stored at bonded and insured lots. I would have money on me to pay for these lots, but instead I would pocket the money and I would frequently sleep in the back of these trucks so I could personally guard them. I would drive out to some empty and sketchy part of Brooklyn or the Bronx and get in the box and pass out. Plus it meant I didn't need to rush home and wake up early to get back on set. BC I was already with the gear. Clearly I didn't think it through. BC had anyone wanted to rob or steal the truck I'd be fricked unless I beat him with a C-stand. In a public bathroom stall in a training area. On a rifle range. Very big no-no in the military. In a shipping container. A closet so no one could find me. Currently chilling in the middle of a field. Wherever I've been, I have slept due to the fact we show up hours earlier than we have to. Not me, but my close friend passed out in the back of a Peapod delivery truck one night after clubbing. His phone was dead and nobody knew where he was all night and were freaking out. I also fell asleep on the toilet taking a dump at a very busy bar on St. Patty's Day. The stall door was broken and I had to bend over to hold it shut. Awoke to some random dude shaking me asking me if I was okay, haha. Upvote for Good Samaritan. Gives me new hope in humanity. In a laundry basket. When I was about 1-2. Whenever laundry came out of the dryer it was so warm. My mom had just dried my blankets so I curled up under them. It was the most comfortable thing ever. Outside under the overhang of an RV on the ground at a campground near Kansas Speedway. It was weird sleeping outside with no tent or anything. My dad farts and snores. It was the best night's sleep ever. On a fire truck with my head resting on loud diesel engine compartment on the way to a fire. Big fire far away as we were being staged to provide extra help backup. Sleep. In front of the main administration building at LSU. Out in front of that spells LSU in gigantic sized letters made out of flowers. Security does not like that. Outside. On a table. Covered by a tablecloth. Mid-autumn. I was at a party at my friend's house. We all got drunk. People started going to sleep in their pre-designated spots. I'm a heavy drinker so I was the last one standing when I realized I didn't have a pre-designated spot to sleep in. House was locked from the inside. Garage was locked. All but one car were locked. The one car was already housing 3 drunkards. Didn't want to sleep on the ground cause it was already very cold. That day was like the last warm day that year. So obviously a wooden table with great air circulation due to being made of wooden bars was my best option. Supposedly, I also woke up last, with everyone sitting around my tablet and having a jolly good time. My abusive ex. Yes, actually abusive, and I were drinking at a party. He thought I was flirting with someone so he took me outside and started yelling at me and hitting me. 2 guys from the party came out and asked what was going on. When I told them that he was hitting me they beat him up pretty badly. The cops were called and as soon as I saw the cop lights in the distance, myself and a few other people took off running. Found myself waking up on the pavement between two parked cars right next to a drain. I'm glad you're out of that relationship and hope you're doing well right now. In a clothing rack surrounded by Victorian era women's dresses. I was sickened at work and it was a place to hide. Looking back, if I would have puked, it would have cost thousands to replace them. But I didn't care then. Also St. Petersburg train station. But that was more of a 3-hour nap until I could get my train rather than an actual sleep. The middle of a dance floor at a 7-day electronic music festival. Why? Well, I really needed some sleep. Like really needed some sleep. True story. Drugs. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.